from the capital city, Georgetown. Political, legislative, economics, and current affairs. The People's National Congress Reform, PNCR, presents Nation Watch.
Good day to you, Guyana, and welcome to Facing the Nation. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you for joining us again this week. And of course, this week, a Partnership for National Unity is revisiting a topic that the partnership would have raised in the past, and it has to do with securing our human safety. Now, the partnership has joined the call of several organizations and individual members in society to speak out against the fact that two police ranks who were accused, who actually tortured a young man back in 2008, they were promoted in the Guyana Police Force. Of course, like I said, the partnership has joined the call against this move. With me on the panel, I begin by introducing to you Mr. Winston Felix. He is the Shadow Minister of Home Affairs, and of course, he's also a member of Parliament. Welcome, Mr. Felix.
Thank you very much, Malika.
Good to have you on, sir. And welcome back to the leader of the People's National Congress Reform and leader of the opposition, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. Good to have you, sir.
Thank you, Malika.
All right. In light of the position taken by APNU on this matter, we decided to revisit the issue and the facts surrounding torture and to remind you why it is not only illegal, but it is inhumane. So we have a clip for you that tells you in detail what the problem with torture really is, and then we'll come back and get deeper into today's discussions. Officers Narayan Lal and Mohan Ram Dulai, who tortured a 15-year-old boy by burning his genitals back in 2008, was met with serious criticism and opposition from various members and various organizations in society, including the Guyana Human Rights Association and the Rights of the Child Commission. The country's main opposition, a Partnership for National Unity, APNU, is no different. Former Police Commissioner and the Shadow Minister of Home Affairs, Winston Felix, also expressed outrage at the move. But before examining the criticisms of the move to promote the delinquent and deviant officers, let's take a closer look at what it really means to torture someone. According to the Human Rights Education Associates, torture is a serious violation of human rights and is strictly prohibited by international law. As the use of torture strikes at the very heart of civil and political freedoms, it was one of the first issues dealt with by the United Nations UN in its development of human rights standards. One of its earliest measures was to abolish corporal punishment in colonial territories in 1949. International law prohibits torture and other forms of inhuman and degrading treatment which cannot be accepted under any circumstances. In the Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman and Degrading Treatment or Punishment, torture is defined as any act by which severe pain or suffering, whether physical or mental, is intentionally inflicted on a person for such purposes as obtaining from him or a third person information or a confession, punishing him for an act he or a third person has committed or is suspected of having committed, or intimidating or coercing him or a third person, or for any reason based on discrimination of any kind, when such pain or suffering is inflicted by or at the instigation of or with the consent or acquiesce of a public official or other person acting in an official capacity. Despite being stringently outlawed, torture continues to be practiced in a majority of countries around the world. A 2001 report by Amnesty International highlighted the use of torture by 140 states between 1997 and 2001 and found that every year thousands of perpetrators beat, rape, and electrocute other human beings. Unfortunately, Guyana is one of those countries where there is constant outcry against torture. Torture and other forms of police brutality including the use of abusive language that continue to be practiced by some unscrupulous members of the Guyana Police Force.
Torture leaves physical scars. Torture leaves mental scars. Torture can traumatize a person for life. Speak out against torture. Stop torture now.
Guyanese can vividly remember persons who were tortured over the years by members of the Guyana Police Force, including Dio Narain Rafik, Naravi Wilfred, Edwin Niles, Victor Jones, Patrick Sumner, David Leander, Alvin Wilson, Michael Dunn, Shaka Chase, and Colwyn Harding. And now, the Guyana Police Force has ensured that no one will ever forget Twayon Thomas, whose genitals were burnt by 2 officers, as mentioned earlier, whose slates have now been apparently wiped clean, as they seem to have been rewarded instead of punished for this brutal crime against humanity. In January 2014, APNU Member of Parliament Winston Felix had cause to raise the issue of torture in the National Assembly, as just a few months prior, Colwyn Harding was allegedly sodomized with a baton by a police rank.
I wish to bring to attention to this honorable House a matter which is gross, perverse, cruel, and inhuman as to attract the condemnation of every member of this House. Colwyn Harding is accusing the police of arresting him, of beating him repeatedly, placing a condom on a button and pushing it, forcing it up his anus. This caused him severe pain and injury, and he independently sought treatment at the public hospital, Georgetown, where he was admitted a patient. There, the injuries revealed, the examination of him revealed injuries to his intestines, which requires him now to use colostomy bags to defecate.
At that time, Felix also felt that the members of the Guyana Police Force were not properly trained nor informed of crimes against humanity.
To inquire from the Honorable Minister of Human Services and Social Security of our ministry's intention to secure training for personnel in the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Guyana Police Force in human rights, particularly as it relates to the treatment of persons taken into police custody and held there until charged or released.
Now back to those officers who are involved in the matter of torture and are now being promoted. Most recently, Felix said that he believes that politicking has played a major role in the move to promote these 2 officers that has done a deed which shocked the nation. Felix says that the non-police members of the Police Services Commission, PSC, are representing the interest of the Office of the President and Freedom House and the Ministry of Home Affairs. He further insists that torture is not an ordinary crime of simple larceny and is adamant that it has international abhorrence. But despite all of this opposition from sections of society, failed Home Affairs Minister Clement Rohi, Acting Police Commissioner Silal Pasad, and Cabinet Secretary Dr. Roger Luncheon all seem to be singing from the same hymnal, as they see nothing wrong with the promotion of the ranks who are now labeled torturers. But importantly, one must always remember that Guyana is a signatory to the United Nations Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhumane, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. Guyana signed that convention on the 25th of January, 1988.
The United Nations Convention on Torture makes it an international crime. And torture in itself and in its various forms
cruel and inhuman and should not be countenanced in any civilized society. Stop torture now.
That was a clip there telling you about today's discussion, of course, in a nutshell, and reminding you how horrible and the fact that torture is illegal and the fact that it's a crime against humanity. Of course, I earlier introduced the panel, so I'll immediately hand you over to the leader of the People's National Congress Reform and the leader of the opposition, the Brigadier. Sir.
Thank you, Malika. Well, there has been torture, and the Guyana Police Force has been involved in torture. I think it's a very interesting film clip. My concern now is that even though torture existed in the past, we have the evidence and we should use the lessons of the past to prevent a recurrence. The problem is with this PPP civic administration is that some of the persons who were involved in torture during what I call the Troubles between 2002 2008, roughly speaking, were never punished. And as a result of that, there's what I call copycat crimes. People felt that the persons who conducted torture, in the case of David Leander and others, were able to get away with it. So now you have junior members of the force who feel that they're not going to be punished. And they feel that they're going to be given license by their superiors to conduct torture. The problem is, in the case of Tuan Thomas, although it's 6 years ago, the murder which prompted these atrocities was the murder of a PPP bigwig, which was a senior member of the PPP. So I think that might have encouraged them to go even further than normal, having arrested a suspect. They felt that they had to get a conviction at all costs. And I think this might have been a dimension which some people have ignored. The fact that the man who murdered Mr. Bisram was in fact a senior member of the People's Progressive Party. But we have a problem now, is that it's a murder, I would say torture is stupid. Because very frequently, the pain is so intense, people tell you whatever they like to ease the pain. And you don't get the truth. If it goes to court, the evidence is not going to be accepted because it was given under duress. So it is really a futile exercise, a stupid exercise. It is creating a cycle of copycat actions, copycat crimes. It is not solving problems, and it is causing huge embarrassment to Guyana. So this is the point I'd like to make. Maybe the worst thing about torture is it's stupid, that you don't get what you're after, and maybe some people, it might be something in the PPP, because many of the older members of society remember 51 years ago, in 1964, one of the worst cases of torture was the torture inflicted on a man called Emmanuel Fairbairn, otherwise known as Batson. And again, the PPP, it was the PPP in office then, 1964. The police conducted that act of torture. And again, there's some morbid attraction to the genitals. So I don't know if it's something about the PPP we need to be careful about, but we have to bring torture to an end, and a Partnership for National Unity is committed to ensuring that there is no further case of torture. And what we've seen here in the clip and in the case of Tuan Thomas must be the last case of torture in the Republic of Guyana.
Sir, is it, forgiven all that you've said, and especially the part where you talked about the person who Tuan Thomas was accused of killing was a PPP bigwig, to use your description, is it fair to say that we have a situation where some of our police officers are take sides, they're politically, if you want to say allegiant, they're politically partial?
I would say that the case of Tuan Thomas was highly politicized because the victim of the murder was a PPP stalwart. This was a murder case, and we've had murder cases before. We have probably about over 100 murders a year, 120 murders sometimes, more. And police are accustomed to behaving in a professional manner, going to the crime scene, looking for clues, conducting a normal investigation. But my feeling is that because this was a PPP stalwart, there was some extra enthusiasm, extra zeal in order to please their bosses. I am not suggesting, because I don't have any evidence, I'm not suggesting that they were given instructions, but certainly they might have felt they were pleasing their bosses by, leaving no stone unturned to find out who the culprits were. But in fact, the DPP had to discontinue prosecution. So the whole fiasco failed to uncover the circumstances on which Bisram was killed, and it has led to this huge scandal, which confirms my view that of everything else we can learn about the Twyone Thomas case, it's the stupidity of the people involved. The policemen, the Ministry of Home Affairs, and all of the other agencies. But now, in 2015, to bring those very persons who were involved, Assistant Commissioner McAnally did conduct an inquiry on behalf of the Office of Professional Responsibility. But to bring them and try to promote them, is really too much. Even if the case had been dismissed and they had been sent out to the force, that would have been bad enough. At least the boy was able to launch a civil appeal, a civil claim to get some compensation. But now, to add insult to injury, you literally, the boy was badly injured, and it's insulting now to promote the people who were engaged in torturing.
Thank you, Brigadier. MP Felix, what should the Brigadier touched a lot, and the last thing he said was it would have been bad enough if these officers would have been dismissed from the force. The case would have been dismissed and they would have been sent off the force. What should have been the maximum punishment for these two police officers when it comes to punishment? I mean on the job, when it comes to the job as police ranks.
Well, in the first instance, they would have been interdicted on the criminal charge. And when the case was dismissed, there was a recourse, since they did not go through a trial, there was the recourse to departmental action. They could have been charged with various offenses under the Police Discipline Act, Chapter 17:01. And under this procedure, the charge sheets, that is, the document which they would receive containing the charge, would have been endorsed for either dismissal or reduction in rank in the case of the sergeant, or both. And so you start from there, and once they are found guilty or were found guilty for those offenses, it was within the commissioner's purview to terminate this, dismiss them, simple as that.
Right. Let's talk about the Police Services Commission, the commission that has promoted these two ranks. Who is in charge of that commission, or I should ask you, who gives directions, who gives directives?
Well, the commission in itself has been set up to deal with issues of discipline and promotion within the Guyana Police Force. Discipline of senior officers, promotion of senior officers. Discipline below inspector is left with the commissioner. So too are the promotions of those junior ones. And the commission ought to decide on those matters within its domain. It should not be instructed. It should not be pressured into making a decision for any political party. Now, the Guyana Police Force, or members of the Guyana Police Force, have no union representation. And the least they can get from an entity as like the Police Service Commission is fairness in dealing with their promotions and their discipline. Any interference with the work of the Police Service Commission or any commission Because remember, these commissions are set up by the Constitution, which is the supreme law of the land. And any interference with the work of the commission is unacceptable. It interferes with the independence of the commission and destroys the faith that we should have in it once it is known that politicians are intervening in the work of the commission, as was said in the newspapers, that the government actually endorses the promotion of these men without looking at the implications internationally of torture. They actually signed the Convention Against Torture. And then, one, they have not incorporated into our domestic law, so there is no offense like torture in our domestic law. And two, people just, as we have seen in Guyana, just get freed, right? We have a couple of cases before the court. We have Colin Hardin's case before the court. We have Alex Griffith's case before the courts, and Junior Thornton. Let's see how they would go.
All right. Brigadier, if I can bring the Brigadier back into this conversation for a bit. Are you expecting an outcry from the international community regarding the promotion of these two ranks, sir?
There has already been an outcry. This incident occurred nearly 6 years ago, and the government of Guyana has to make what they call presentations at the UPR, the Universal Periodic Review, at the Human Rights, the United Nations Human Rights Commission. And this had to be done. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Caroline Rodriguez, did travel to Geneva, Switzerland, to make the presentation. So the previous review, I think it's triennially, the previous review, this Twain Thomas case came up. But when you read the report of the last UPR in Geneva, many of the developed countries, including Canada, including Norway, United States, are still hammering Guyana, which reinforces the stupidity of torture, because you can't escape for it. Everybody now has got mobile phones, everybody's been able to communicate. So the word is out there, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs has got to travel up, and she is not responsible. The one who should be held responsible is Mr. Clement Rohi, because he is responsible for Home Affairs, and he should be able to stand up in front of the people like Guyana and tell the people what he's doing to stamp torture out. But he's so busy running elections that he doesn't have time to do that. So, you know, I would like to say that the crime is a serious one. It is causing Guyana great agony and anguish. I would like to see that maybe the Minister of Foreign Affairs can go up to the next, well, she won't be there, next UPR 3 years from now, and report that all of the measures to prevent the cruel or inhuman treatment of persons would be brought to an end.
Brigadier, I know you've always said that when you take office, governmental office, of course, that it would not be, you were not APNU and yourself, you're not on a witch hunt. But I must ask, after May the 11th, can an APNU government have these two officers who are being promoted now? Can you have them removed from the force or demoted? Would that be, I think ethical is the word I'm looking for, and eventually I know Mr. Felix would jump in on this.
Torture is not a traffic infraction. Torture is not a misdemeanor. Torture is a very serious crime. And what I have said is, even though I'm not in a witch hunt, you cannot close your eyes to torture, because torture has had the effect of copycats. There are other people in the force who are going to try it to get away with it. And my colleague, Mr. Felix, will tell you about the situation in Sparnam. We had one with a young cadet officer. There are going to be imitators. So, as I said, you know, although I'm not going to go on a witch hunt, torture is in a class by itself. Torture is a crime of international jurisdiction. It means that if these torturers go to America, they could be prosecuted in America for conducting crime in Guyana. That's how bad it is. So it is not a question of forgetting, of wiping the slate clean. Nothing that Mr. Silal Prasad can do, nothing that the Police Service Commission could do, nothing that the Cabinet could do, could erase the stain of torture.
All right. MP Felix, in terms of the dynamics of the force, how easy or how difficult it would be to then have these officers removed, these ranks removed?
Well, we would follow due process, first thing. And therefore, due process in this case would require us to examine the legal means available to us to review the matter and to direct us on a course of action that would seem to be fair and just to everybody, not just to the two policemen, but to the man who was, the person who was injured, and to send a message to others, that that sort of crime would not be tolerated by an APNU government.
All right.
I think that is what is missing here.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Viewers, if you're now joining us, of course, you're tuned to Facing the Nation. Today we're discussing torture and the fact that APNU is against the promotion of the two police ranks who tortured the young man back in 2008. MP Felix, at an earlier press conference, you told the media that there were no incidents of torture under your watch as a police commissioner. Of course, you are the former police commissioner also. What is being done differently? Because if you're saying it did not occur in your time and it's happening now and it's constantly happening, what was different?
You see, you have to enforce the disciplinary code of the organization. Organizations like the police cannot be successfully administered unless we set the right standard. And those who deviate must feel the weight of the disciplinary procedure available. People must see the officers and their conduct. Many of the officers in my time would not dare encourage a junior to assault a prisoner, a person in custody, much more go to that extent. To use methylated spirits. Methylated spirits has no place in the police inquiry office. None whatsoever. Much more to have it available and to use twice. Once in Leonora and the other at Sparanda. That is unacceptable conduct, and from the moment it started, those involved should have felt the weight of the internal procedures of the force. I suspect that was not the case.
Are you still, because you did express some concerns about this some time ago, are you still concerned that ranks, regardless of which police station we're talking about, whether Georgetown or other regions, are you still concerned that ranks may not be fully informed on, as it relates to torture being a crime against humanity? Do you have that concern?
Well, I have the concern, and I think it is a real concern, that the Convention Against Torture has not been circulated to a wide enough audience in the force so that it can continue. I mean, once a certain level of the hierarchy in the force have been properly instructed on it, they can then take it forward down to the stations. I suspect that may not have been done, and I get the impression on review now that these important conventions which the government have signed on to have not been properly circulated to develop an understanding, particularly those relating to law enforcement, an understanding of how the convention should be applied, the terms of the convention should be applied within the Guyana Police Force. To me, it is not difficult. I've read the convention. It is not difficult. But since torture has become such an issue, I hold the Minister of Home Affairs in neglect of duty, because he should have initiated that action. He could have gotten the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to do the sort of circulation and pass the information on to the police. between the police and the DPP would have had an interaction on it, and study periods could have been organized. It had been done, those study periods were organized in the past, and I see no reason why they could not have been done soon after the 2009 incident we're reviewing here.
Some people might argue that these police ranks who commit this heinous act, this crime against humanity, maybe actually they may have a problem, a mental problem. Is there some sort of psychological guidance and counseling in the force for ranks in general, not to wait until they do something like this and then, but before, they say prevention is better than cure. Do we have that?
No. Well, I should speak for up to 2006. And I doubt whether it is happening now. In my time, I had seen some misuses of firearm, which led me to believe that very soon, the force might have to move to acquire psychological evaluation of every entrant into the organization. And I say this because it is a feeling I harbored since around 2005, 2006, based on what I saw in the organization. I don't know how much traction that has had within since I have left, but based on the issues that you see Kimeri, the baton charge, you see Kewan Thomas, you see a cadet officer leaving Mahaika, coming to Georgetown and involving in a matter where a relative of his was allegedly robbed and playing Russian roulette with another human being. These issues have led me to believe that psychological evaluation is now a relevant, now useful tool to be involved in the selection of members, in the recruitment of members of the force.
But as APNU's Home Affairs Minister, in our case, Public Security Minister, after May 11, would you introduce that psychological evaluation for each person who's entering the Guyana Police Force, and how expensive would it be to keep up a program like that?
Well, these are matters which we will have to explore. Probably you can have particular programs with concessions and with consideration of volume, right? The numbers may lead to a reduction, but obviously we will have to explore what is here locally, or if there is better we can source from abroad, then good enough, but we must start locally to see who is here that can assist with that. Because I think the public has a right to be policed by people who are balanced in their thinking and are not easily pushed to the extreme and so make lives for citizens very uneasy, uncomfortable, and distrustful of the police in general.
All right. Viewers, I should also take the time to remind you that I'll open up the phone lines a little later on in the program. And just to let you know, even though you're probably seeing two numbers on your screens, you can only get us on 225-0010. That's 225-0010. I'll open up the phone lines for you to pose your questions. MP Felix, before I come to the Brigadier, I want to talk to the Brigadier regarding sentiments by Dr. Roger Luncheon and, of course, sentiments by Mr. Clement Rohi regarding the promotion of these two officers. But before I talk to the Brigadier, what does it say to you? What does it say about a police commissioner who seems to want to just brush this matter aside and think that, okay, it's again, quote unquote, it's time to move on regarding the promotion of these officers? What could he possibly be thinking? And I'm asking you as a former commissioner.
Well, I will give you a straight answer. And my straight answer is I have a very strong concern for the comfort the commission is enjoying in that office. A very strong concern. Because I know the environment. You have to be extremely strong and willing to respond as you see it and as you know it. And if the commissioner is of a certain mindset and he's unwilling to face off with certain people, then you will have situations like this and more. Because the information out there suggests a certain amount of discomfort he's going through. I'm not going to say by whom and from where it is coming, but I know where it is coming from. And so I understand any discomfort he may be going through, even if he doesn't want to admit it, because I understand the situation very well. And as such, he would be constrained to act outside what, as the leader was saying, what he expects, or what he knows the principals expect of him. Maybe even if sometimes he doesn't want to go in that direction, he might consider it unwise to do so if he knows it's not something, an act would be countenanced by the powers that be.
Even though you haven't said it, or the brigadier hasn't said it on this program at least, come plain out and say it. Is there a concern, and this is getting back to the ranks of themselves, the two ranks who are being promoted. Are you concerned that these two ranks could either torture again or encourage their junior ranks to torture, to get involved?
Both are possibilities. Both are distinct possibilities. Because since we can only consider them to be of a certain psychological makeup, because only a person of a certain psychological makeup can contemplate undressing a man, dousing him in an inflammable substance, and then lighting him a fire. If that is a dastardly act, and only persons who got what we call a screw slack can involve themselves in such an act against another human being. So I feel that they are likely to do it again as well. They have the capacity to encourage their juniors, and they stay back.
All right. Brigadier, on to Minister Rohi, and interestingly enough, you would have moved a motion in the National Assembly for Clement Rohi to demit office, but now we're hearing, not in these exact words, but himself along with Dr. Luncheon, you were basically telling the public, look, that it's okay to promote these two officers, let bygones be bygones. That was 2008, this is 2015. What's your thought? What are your thoughts on these two gentlemen who hold such high offices in our nation?
Well, I think they are both unaware of the reality within the services. They don't know of the culture, they don't know of the camaraderie. And when something like this happens within a service, everybody's affected because the public looks on the service as a homogeneous unit, policemen. And when this occurs, everybody suffers. How are you all treating people like that? You know, that would be the comment. And I think if they were more aware, not only of the internal culture, but also of the international culture, they would not say some of the things that they said, because it is easy to construe the remarks attributed to Dr. Luncheon as being, I would say, supportive of the torture rather than being condemnatory. And when you read what he said, you know, it suggests that, you know, that it's okay that time has passed. Let me read exactly what he said. Dr. Roger Luncheon, head of the Presidential Secretariat, stated on the 28th of January 2015, this is last month, and I quote, "I think there was a satisfaction with the Police Service Commission's contention that the law had taken its course, the disciplinary actions had been implemented, and there was no need to deny the policeman's promotion." Well, this is poppycock. This is really silly. That you know, all offenses are not the same. This is not like jumping a major road or driving with heavily tinted windscreens. This is a crime against humanity. So Dr. Luncheon, the government of Ghana, and he's the spokesman for the cabinet, you know, are way off the mark. They're way out of tune with the rest of human civilization, and I feel that the only action they could take is to rescind the promotions and remove these two people from the Guyana Police Force.
All right. And we've talked about several aspects of this, but we haven't touched on the Director of Public Prosecution, that office. Is this another major fail in our nation in terms of that particular office, the Director of Public Prosecution's office?
It's a she, this is not the only controversial decision she's made. I would certainly like to ask my colleague to make a comment on it, because I was very disappointed some years ago when the police legal advisor was removed, because I do believe that some move was made to reinstall. I don't know if one has been appointed as yet. But before things go to the DPP, there needs to be an examination of the facts by a police legal advisor. But coming back to the DPP, this is very strange. Somebody was killed, and she has now ordered what is called a letter of discontinuance. So what is the public to feel about this? Mr. Bisram has been murdered. He probably has relatives, who expected this matter to be properly investigated. But once the torture case came to the fore, the DPP, I don't know her motivation, but she apparently tried to stop the proceedings. And then I think the charges that were brought against the two policemen, even though Assistant Commissioner Makanlal had investigated, I don't think that the DPP's instructions were in accord with the recommendations from Mr. Makanlal. So I think we have a royal mess here involving several government departments, and there's obviously this stench. It's clearly there's this stench of political contamination in this matter here, and it involves the DPP's chambers, it involves the ministry, it involves the cabinet, it involves the Police Service Commission, it involves the Guyana Police Force itself, the Commissioner's office.
Okay. MP Felix, would you like to
Yeah,
comment on this?
first of all, the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, an independent office it ought to be. That the person holding that office has awesome powers. The DPP can enter in Alpras at any stage of a criminal trial. Any stage of a criminal trial. And I think I made a comment earlier at the press conference that this government has fiddled with all the institutions in this country and tainted them. And I don't think that certain decisions, we have seen some decisions, the Nandalal issue is one, right? Where the decision of the DPP leaves more questions than answers, even to the ordinary citizen. Well, how can such a decision be made? And as such, I would imagine that in this torture case, that the DPP should have reviewed that file and should have ordered disciplinary charges. There is no question of these two men being tried twice for the same offense. They were acquitted because of the absence of a witness, and they would not have been tried for the same offenses for which they were charged criminally. They would have been charged for transgressions of the disciplinary code. And and when this matter started, I saw many. And not only those two should have been charged, there are others who could have been disciplined because of various acts of neglect which surrounded the handling of this Stephen Thomas matter.
All right, thank you,
I
sir.
think one of the outstanding characteristics of this entire case over the last 6 years has been the failure of the PPP administration to come to grips with the seriousness of the crime. And as a result of that, they are completely unaware of the consequences. It is very important that the people of this country understand what has taken place. This is not a minor misdemeanor. This is a very serious international crime. And all of us, all Guyanese are affected by it. And the government has to do more than it has done so far, because from January to now, with the promotion of these two persons, it's becoming more and more obvious that more and more government officers are either complicit or they're complacent. Okay, what comes to do? You know, they're not taking a stand in correcting this abuse. I would like to hear from the women in the cabinet. I'd like to hear from the Minister of Legal Affairs. You know, I'd like to hear from civil society. GHRA has stood out, but other people should stand up and call for the reversal of these this atrocious promotion.
I'm happy that the Brigadier say that. Just before we go to the phone lines, viewers, the phone line is actually open 225-0010. But before I take the calls, Mr. Felix, the Brigadier touched on something important there. The fact that we need more persons. He's calling on more persons, especially the women in the cabinet, to speak out against this promotion. Is there any way possible that maybe the ranks who are now junior to these two ranks who have been promoted, can they launch some sort of protest action in whichever way? Is that possible?
Not in the Guyana police force, because they will put their entire career at risk. But what I do know, they would not be able to command the respect of many, because of what is already known of them in these matters. Or you could talk to me when you born up a man. You know, as simple as that, right? And organizations like the police, military, and so on, you need leaders out there who you must be able to look up to, who you must respect. I have some men who I work with, they are retired like me, and I literally copied the behavior of some of these men during my term in the force, during my service. You look at certain leaders and you copy from them. And similarly, there are some you just don't want to see. And in this case here, I think these very two gentlemen are likely to stand such a fate in the eyes of their juniors.
All right. Viewers, you can call and pose your questions now. Please try to focus on today's topic, or at least the security sector in general. The number to call is 225-0010. That's the only number that's working at present. And of course, turn the volumes of your television sets down. Be brief and, of course, be respectful. While the line seems to be quiet for now. Brigadier, in terms of addressing this matter, you already talked about APNU's position regarding torture. What should be everybody's position regarding torture? After an APNU administration takes office, would there be need to set up some sort of board or committee to discuss the matter? I mean, I don't know that there any discussion is needed, but would you need to set up a board committee? Would you need to get a team to deal with it?
This particular case is a very bad one. We feel in APNU that it has sent the wrong message to other members of the Guyana Police Force and to the public at large, and certainly to the family of the people who are concerned with it. So that matter has to be resolved. And I've given a commitment that although we're not on a witch hunt, there are certain serious crimes which have occurred during the Troubles, and this is one of the serious crimes which has occurred. Although it's at the tail end of the Troubles, we feel that we should not allow this crime to go unpunished. As far as the other measures are concerned, we have to take corrective action in the Guyana Police Force. It has to, the training in human rights, civil rights, that training has to be central to the police training, not only in marching and drill and charges and the law, but also in standards, the values and standards. When people see somebody in uniform there under an APNU administration, it must be whether that person is in the police force or defense force, customs anti-narcotics unit, forestry commission, geology and mines commission, that person must be respected. And right now, I believe that many of the public services, because of the way they've been treated by the People's Progressive Party over the last 22 years, have lost the confidence of the public. And rich people feel they can go and bribe, because they know that the public servants are so poorly paid. So we need to make the public servant, the policeman, the defense force soldier, once again, a person who's respected in the community. And we have to look at all of these aspects, the training that's given to the policemen, the prevention of torture. There's also domestic violence, There must be more police women who can deal with these matters sympathetically. In a case like this, there must be better supervision. There must be clear guidelines. We know what happened in the case of the doctor who examined, the boy, who claimed that he had a hood over his head. He had to be sanctioned, So when you look at the case, almost every aspect of what should be proper policing had been violated. I think when the DPP gave her recommendation, the only person who seemed to be punished was the divisional commander, who had the least to do with this matter. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done as a result of this case, and I believe that there are a lot of lessons for the police force, for the government, and for society as a whole. But we would like to put this case behind us and look up to policemen in future, knowing that they will actually serve and protect.
Thank you, sir. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
A very good day to the panel.
Good day to you.
I would like to know, Mr. Rory and Mr. Luncheon as children, if they do have the day of reckoning is coming, God doesn't like certain things, but you sow, you reap. And they will reap what they sow. You understand? God is in charge, and all is well. Roy and Luncheon, they love what went on, and that is why they promoted him. Thank you very much. God is in charge. God is in charge. God is in charge. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, ma'am. Very interesting that the caller should ask indeed if these gentlemen have children and grandchildren. Caller, welcome.
Hello, welcome. I do believe that having those policemen there would benefit this government. They feel that they would benefit them. That's why they promote them. Do their dirty work whenever the time comes. That is why they're keeping these guys. You understand? This is a terrorist government. Let me let you know that.
Thank you very much.
You're saying that we must...
Caller, are you there? Caller? Caller, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Incoming members of Government of Guyana for 2015. How are you guys doing?
Fine.
Fine, very good.
Here. Mr. Felix, you need to groom up yourself, man. You need to look more hot. This is going to get even hotter. All right, my contribution this afternoon, I was in a vehicle coming down East Bank a few days ago. Now, this is a free flow of traffic, and there in the mid, you see a police officer out with a gun and tell the guy you were driving at 61. Then I said, man, that's not the way how you do it. I mean, that's a free flow of traffic. You can't expect persons to slow up because so many vehicles behind. Anyway, when I talked to her, she said I took her picture, which I didn't do that. Another officer come on and said, hello, get up to the police outpost at by Agricola. I said, sir, that's the way you speak to people. You hear what I'm telling you? Get out of this vehicle and get upstairs to the outpost. So I cooperated. I came out. I said, what am I going up for? I took a picture. I showed him my phone. I said, I don't have time to wait to take a picture. I'm simply telling her that she's wrong what she did. Anyway, when I went up to the outpost, he realized he couldn't do me anything. My cell phone rang, so he probably thought somebody else. He don't know who I be. He said, all right, go along your way. Now the police got to approach the drivers and the citizens in a better manner. And these things, when you speak out, you're here, you're supporting the opposition. You understand me? Now we're living in Kitty. We have a bridge at Dowding Street that I've been putting on Facebook for the last 5 days or 4 days now, waiting to be repaired by the Ministry of Local Government. They made a promise to us that they're going to fix the bridge. To date, nothing is happening.
Yes, caller, we're here. We're hearing you.
So, I mean, a lot of things is not going right in this country. And everybody has a choice to support the party that they want to put in government. You have the PS, the Minister of Amerindian Affairs, Nigel Darmlal. He's using the ministry's time to write trash on Facebook. These things must stop.
All right, caller. Caller, I thank you for your contribution, but I'm going to have to stop you there because we have to wrap up. But thank you very much for the information.
Thank you.
All right then, caller. Gentlemen, unfortunately, we're almost out of time, of course, but I'll just give a chance to have the panel speak on exactly what it is that you want the public to know regarding APNU's position, APNU's stance on torture. Beginning with yourself, Mr. Felix.
APNU is thoroughly against torture on all forms of cruel and inhuman and degrading treatment of citizens. APNU wants a police force that is firm, respectful of the public, would obey the law and enforce the law at the same time. APNU would spare no effort to ensure that the police force in its discharge of its duties would ensure that at all times they are professional and they would bring offenders to justice.
Thank you. Brigadier?
We have had a very bad situation here with the case of Twain Thomas, but also there are many other instances of torture which have been cited by my colleague Vincent Felix. And it is time that we close the chapter on torture by the Guyana Police Force. We want to build in APNU, we want to build a police force that is respectful of the people and that the people respect. And for that to happen, we must take a firm stand against torture, and that is what APNU is doing today. No more torture in the Guyana Police Force. No more torture in the Republic of Guyana.
Thank you very much, sir. And viewers, remember, in order for us to have the things that the Brigadier is talking about, no more torture in Guyana, no more torture in the Guyana Police Force, the only way you can have that, and of course it will come after May the 11th, 2015, and that's by voting solidly for a partnership for national unity. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. APNU Member of Parliament and Shadow Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Winston Felix, and of course Leader of the People's National Congress Reform and Leader of the Opposition, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. This has been Facing the Nation. I'm Malika Ramsey. Thanks for watching. Be good Guyanese citizens. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.